Thank you guys for coming. Parents, thank you for coming. This is our first time doing something like this, but we find as Webb continues to grow and as we continue to get more and more student athletes who are interested in the next level, we just want to make sure that you're fully prepared on what the process is, and we want you to be fully prepared on what college coaches are truly looking for, how they're finding you, what you can do to be found in your sport. And so we have a lot of questions here that I'm going to ask these coaches. They're going to introduce themselves, but what we have here is kind of a mixture of divisions, a mixture of sports. Your sport may not be represented here, but a lot of these coaches are involved with the other sports. If they talk about something at the Division I level, if they talk about something at the Division III level, it's gonna look similar across the board. Something I would like to say is that we are very thankful that all of these individuals are here tonight. This is not a recruiting tool, so we do ask not to bombard them afterwards and say, hey, I'm the best baseball player ever, please recruit me. But we would like to say thank you, and if you have any maybe specific questions for one of these coaches, they're going to hang out just for a short period afterwards, but we are going to be respectful of their time. One last thing too, we are going to record this tonight, so if you have, especially my international parents or students, if your international parents would like to view this afterwards, or some of our other students who weren't able to make it, we will have this recorded that you can share with your parents just to kind of share that information, okay? So I'm just going to first let them start, and I will ask each of you just to kind of introduce who you are, your athletic background, and how you kind of got to the position you're in now. So.
Okay, well, I am Janice Mori. I have been in this area for quite a while. I actually grew up in Lynchburg, Tennessee, graduated from Moore County High School. I went to Motlow State Community College, which is where I coach now. It is a junior college. I love the JUCO route. I'm a JUCO individual myself. Then I went from Motlow State Community College on to Cumberland University in Lebanon and played there, stayed there, let them pay for my master's, got my master's degree at Cumberland, and then now I have coached and taught at the high school level for 15 years and now at Motlow for 6. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Caroline Carlton. I am from the Middle Tennessee area. I grew up in Franklin, graduated from Independence High School, so not too far from here at all. I then went and played volleyball at Mercer University, which is a smaller Division I school in Macon, Georgia, 4 hours and 10 minutes from here. And then I transitioned to coach. I coached at the Division III level for 4 years at a school in Georgia and then a school in Louisiana. And then I went back to Mercer and served as the Assistant Director of Admissions and Athletic Recruitment for 2.5 years. And I've just transitioned out of that position, and I'm currently the Director of Student Success at Mercer University. So not in athletics anymore, but still work with athletes while they're current students, and I've kind of seen every piece of the recruitment that can happen for student athletes.
My name's Bill Cooper. I am the head track and cross country coach at Sewanee, University of the South. Pick one, we go by both. I'm originally from Ohio. I grew up in Columbus. I went to a Division III school in Northwest Ohio. I could throw a rock and we'll hit 1 million schools like ours up in that area. I was a dual sport athlete. I see a lot of soccer hoodies. I played soccer, I ran track all 4 years of college. I was pre-med. Obviously somewhere I decided to change my mind and go a different route. I'm reminded of that every month when I look at my paycheck. I have done track and cross country as a coach, as a profession for about 20 years. This is my 3rd year at Sewanee, so I think that's my background.
Aaron Smith, I'm associate head coach at Belmont University in Nashville. I'm a local guy, live in Murfreesboro, been there since 1986. Graduated from Riverdale High School and then played baseball at Motlow State Community College, and then finished up at Middle Tennessee State. I was fortunate enough after that to go back to Motlow. I had a head coach then that told me that, hey, if you'll come back and help me coach, I was interested in getting into that, and it told me that if you came back that we would pay for your grad school, which was pretty awesome to hear. Went back and coached at Motlow, loved every minute of my time in junior college, and then was fortunate enough to meet Scott Hall, who's now the baseball coach here, and was a volunteer at Belmont for 3 years, and then for the past 10 years now, I've been an assistant at Belmont, and have enjoyed every minute of that. So.
Perfect. And Coach Smith is baseball. I think you missed the small
Yes.
detail of baseball.
Yes.
But yes, baseball. And coaches, feel free if you just, whatever question here on out that you feel moved to answer, feel free. We don't have to go in order every time. So just talking in general about the process within your sport, within your division, your process of recruiting a student athlete. So you have X amount of open spots on your roster for next year. What are kind of your first steps and who are you talking to? Is it more important to be talking to coaches, club coaches, travel teams? Who are you kind of seeking out in that process of recruitment?
I'll take this first. For me, and especially with baseball, I'm going first to the people that I trust. And usually it is the high school coach or the junior college coach. Those are usually the first people that I will hit before I get to our club coaches. Just the experience that I have, the high school coach has a vested interest in you and trying to make you the best baseball player that you can be or best athlete that you can be, but they're usually the ones that are going to shoot you straight. I'm not saying that the club coach doesn't do that, but parents, if you hear me on this, it's a lot of times when you're paying the club coach, they're going to say a lot of really, really nice things about you. Where a lot of times that high school coach is going to tell you, hey, this is who he is, this is what he can do, this is what he can't do, and then it's up to me, and what my eyes see is basically, is this somebody that I think can help our program? And for me, it's definitely the high school coach or the junior college coach first when I start my recruitment on a student athlete.
See, we're pretty similar for our track and cross country kids. Division III, we don't have athletic scholarships, so you guys aren't fighting for us for roster spots necessarily like some of the other divisions where you're limited roster sizes and you're limited with the number of athletic scholarships that you have. For us, we'll reach out to a lot of coaches that we've worked with previously or that we've gotten student athletes from their schools previously that have come to Sewanee. We talk with our admissions department quite regularly, and so we have an idea of these are the schools that we will traditionally pull student athletes from, or students from in general. And those are some of the schools that we'll kind of look at first. For us, your admission is based off of your GPAs and your test scores. It's not based off of your ERAs and how fast you run. So where we kind of go next is after we've talked to coaches, the first thing that we tell them is this is kind of the GPA that we're looking for. If you can't get into Sewanee, I don't want to waste your time, and I want to make sure that you have your options throughout your college process because it's confusing enough as it is. And to be honest, you're going to have a lot of coaches that are going to reach out to you and they're going to tell you how wonderful you are and how wonderful their programs are and why you should come to their school a lot of times. You're going to get that all over the place. I don't want you to waste your time and fall in love with a school like Sewanee if academically you're not going to be A, able to get in, and B, able to be successful. So that's kind of where we go. And do we have any track or cross country kids in here? Nope, perfect. I was going to say mile split is the bane of your existence, but that's also one of the places that we'll kind of look at from like just times, marks, performances, so we can kind of look at that a little bit ahead of time.
You got it.
I mean, I'm totally different. Obviously, we're a junior college, so academics is definitely still important, for sure. I mean, you have to pass to play. So academics is always going to be a priority, and you are called a student athlete for a reason. Student comes first, athlete comes second. But for us, we can accept a little bit lower test scores. We can accept a little lower GPA. So for me, what I would tell you guys is that there is someone, if you want to play, there's a place for every single one of you. It's a matter of finding the right fit, as Coach was talking about. So don't let anything stand in your way. If you want to play, go after it. And for me, the recruiting process for us with junior college, because so many times there's the glass overlook, I'm going to a 4-year, I'm going to a 4-year, I'm going to a 4-year, until all of a sudden one day you realize, oh crap, I'm not going to a 4-year. And so then they start kind of looking at us. So for us, we love it when you reach out to us individually, because then it says, hey, I am interested, you know, I'm not chasing a rabbit down a rabbit hole, okay? So advocate for yourself is what I would say primarily. I don't know if that's around y'all's alley too or not.
Well, you stole my
Definitely.
line. About, there's a place for everyone.
There is.
I say that all the time. Like for us, if I tell kids and I tell families all the time, if it's something that you're passionate about, whatever it is, whether it's soccer, whether it's basketball, whether it's track, whether it's running, whether it's art, whether it's music, whatever it is, there's a place for you to be able to continue that passion. Whether it's a 4-year school, whether it's a 2-year school, whether it's close to home, whether it's far away, whether it's public, whether it's private. I always tell kids, if it's something you're passionate about, don't give up on it, because there's always going to be a spot for you to continue doing it.
So you guys almost kind of touched on this, but a question I hear a lot is, how do I get in contact with a coach? So if you could kind of talk about, do you like when student athletes email you? Do you prefer for the college counselor or the coach to start the conversation? What is kind of your way, if you do not know about a student athlete, what's the best way or what's your preferred way for a student athlete to contact you? Or do you not want them to contact you?
I'll knock it out first because I'm different again. For me, it's me and me. Okay, like some of you guys have recruiters, this, that, and another. So the more emails that can come across for me with your name in it, the better. The more I'm going to pay attention, the more it's going to red flag because it's just me. So, and I teach as well as I coach. So it's a lot. So keeping up with all of that, the more times I see your name, the more attention you're going to get from me. So I would say all of the above for me.
I'll talk about this from the perspective of like when I coached in D3 versus my previous role in admissions as an athletics liaison. So when I was coaching, I coached at D3. The first school I coached at was very low level D3. I can definitely echo what he said. If you want it bad enough and you're willing to make maybe sacrifices on not getting a scholarship or where you play, it's definitely a place for you. I can say that because I literally coached at the worst school in Division III volleyball for 2 years. It's good. We didn't win a game. It was awesome. Anyway, I still had another job after it, so it's fine. But I loved when players reached out to me because I was a very young coach and I wasn't super connected in the field yet, so I didn't have a ton of relationships with high school coaches except for where I went to high school, which was in Tennessee. I was coaching at a small school in Georgia. I did have more connections in the club world, but I loved it when players reached out to me because I don't know if any of you guys played volleyball, but if you play club volleyball, when a coach signs up for a tournament, all the players know that that coach is signed up through kind of the services of the tournament. And it would be really great to just have a player say, hey, I'm on this court, because it gives you a place to start. So definitely do that. Again, you can contact coaches a lot of times before coaches can contact you, depending on the rules in the division. So reaching out to us is always really great. Definitely encourage you to do that. On the flip side, so at my previous role, my title was Assistant Director of Admissions and Athletic Recruitment. So my title had the word athletic in it and it had the word recruitment in it. And people got really confused and thought I was an athletics recruiter. I was not. I was an admissions counselor, but I worked specifically with athletes. A lot of times student athletes make a mistake, I'm going to call it a mistake, of going on a school's website and emailing anyone with the title athletics in it, their film or their highlights. Don't do that. Because you might be emailing an assistant athletic director that works in facilities, or me, who's an admissions counselor who works with athletes, but I don't recruit them. The coaches recruit them and I work with them. So definitely reach out to coaches, but don't go to a school's website and reach out to everyone with the title athletics in their name, or the word athletics in their title. But definitely reach out to coaches, because again, you can talk to coaches before they can talk to you a lot of times, and the more we see your name, the more you're going to be on our radar, and the more likely we are to see you.
Same kind of thing, to be honest. Reach out to us, and for the parents that are in the room, I know that name, image, and likeness is now a thing.
Yes.
Please do not serve as your children's agent. I would rather hear from your son or daughter than the parent. The other thing is, how many of y'all are seniors? Not three. No one? Nobody wants to raise their hand? There's a senior.
There we go.
So I'm assuming at this point you've probably started the admissions process, you've started filling out applications, you've talked to schools, and you've probably got emails in your mailbox from admissions folks. Don't ghost admissions. Because
Don't do that.
And don't ghost coaches, because if it's a school that you're really, really interested in, they want the students that they think are going to be the best fit for that institution, whatever school it is. So if I'm actively recruiting somebody and admissions is sending you information, but you're talking to me all the time and you don't say a word to admissions, on their end, they don't think you're interested. So when it comes down to that admissions process, we want people that are really interested in us. And if you're not communicating with admissions, now luckily we have a liaison in our admissions department that we tell who we're talking to. But in some cases that doesn't exist. So admissions and athletics kind of live in their own bubbles on some campuses, and admissions may make the decision to not admit somebody that they've never heard from. So don't ghost your admissions, even if it's just a really quick email that says, thank you so much for the email, I'll take a look at it and I'll get back to you.
Or even letting them know that you're a recruit, because sometimes, like you said, admissions and athletic departments don't always talk. That's not always a position that exists. So again, advocate for yourself. Let that admissions counselor know, yes, I'm interested, I'm talking to this coach, look forward to hearing from you soon. It's really easy.
And if you're not interested in a school, let the coaches know too.
Yes.
I get broken up with every year, hundreds of times.
Same.
And I'm okay with it. I would rather you tell me, hey coach, I'm not interested, than, hey, thanks for the information, coach, I'll get back to you. And we do that song and dance for 6 months. Eventually I'm gonna move on to somebody else. Or you've already moved on and I don't know it, but it's somebody that we've had communication with, so I think theoretically you're still interested. It's okay to tell somebody if you're not interested.
And a lot of times I feel like athletes put off the breakup with a coach because they don't want to hurt your feelings, but every coach you're talking to is an adult and they've had the conversation before, and it's much better on your part. It's a very honorable thing to do, to tell a coach you're no longer interested or you've committed somewhere else. So don't be afraid to do it, and don't think you're going to disappoint someone, because we've heard it before and we'll hear it again.
But we are going to be disappointed if we're really excited to have it, so.
Yeah.
I would tell you, the thing that I see from emails, as a matter of fact, I had one of these the other day where it was, dear coach, and then it was the wrong person's name, and then it was, hey, I'm really interested in Miami University, and it was, well, I'm at Belmont, you know. So I guess I go back to just make sure it's genuine. I mean, if you have genuine interest, I would put it together a personal email that says, hey, this is where I'm really interested in, here are my grades, this is obviously where I go to school at, here's a 2-minute video just of a clip for baseball. It's me taking some swings, ground balls, or if I'm a pitcher, am I showing some video of that? That's going to help me get an initial look. I have a real good friend of mine that said the video, a lot of times, it can get you your foot in the door, or it can get you evicted from the premises. And it's true, okay? And just saying that, again, going back to that genuine email, if there's something that you know of somebody in the athletic department, or that you had a relative that played there or whatnot, a lot of times that helps me. It resonates a little bit. I've been at Belmont now for 13 years, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. Or I remember this person, and it's like, hey, I can then pick up the phone. What do you know about this person? Or just, it just helps me connect the dots a little bit. But that's the thing that I would tell you, is just make a genuine email towards somebody that it's actually supposed to go to. And again, I would echo a lot of what they said too, that don't let your parents be your agent. If this is your life and this is your opportunity, this isn't your parents. And it's time for you now to grow up and now go and take that step forward of, hey, this is something that I want to go after. Last thing I'll say on the whole thing is, on these questions, it's, do you love it or do you like it? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I noticed too. It's like, man, I really like playing. Do you like it or do you love playing? Could you see yourself when things are if you're struggling or you're having adversity, are you able to overcome it? A lot of times if you just like it, it ends up being something that you decide to get out of. If you love it, you're going to find a way to persevere. So that'd be my advice to you.
And can I also say, like, for instance, too, when you sign up to play college ball, it is a big commitment. A lot of people will talk about it as it's a job, this, that, and another. But if you are passionate about the game, it never feels like a job, no matter what. Okay, so that would be just something too, that if you are feeling like it's a job, then maybe you don't quite have the passion level that it's going to take to play at the college level. So just be honest with yourself about that.
So you have found a student athlete, the talent level is there. As a coach, what are some of the intangibles you're looking for that you may have two kids that have equal talent, but these intangibles are going to set one apart from the other? What, as a coach, are you kind of looking for?
Ooh, so COVID really helped us figure this one out. So for the past year and a half, we couldn't really compete. We couldn't travel for meets, any of that. So, and I'm relatively new at Sewanee. I took over a program, and we're trying to build a program. We're trying to do some really cool things with it. So with COVID, what we kind of figured out for us, what we're looking for is obviously education at Sewanee. That's number one. If you're coming to Sewanee for another reason besides your education, then we are going to have a different conversation the first time we talk. But for kind of like what everybody else has echoed, you have to be passionate about this. Like, this is something that outside of practice is still important to you. I don't want you to leave at practice and that's it until 22 hours later when you come back to practice again, and then we just kind of do what we're asked to do. This is kind of a lifestyle, and it's something that you're passionate about, and it's something that you want to work hard and you want to get better at. And it's really easy to say I want to be good. It's really hard to put in the work, and it's even harder to put in the work when you're not at practice. And that means out of season, that means in the weight room, that means over the summer, that means in the dining hall, eating correctly, that means going to bed early, that means time management skills. All of that makes you a better athlete, no matter what level it is. You hear these professional athletes that are literally spending millions of dollars a year to take care of their body, to hire chefs and cooks and to hire masseuses. And those are the things that actually make them better. It's not necessarily what they're doing at practice. So the one thing we kind of do is, there's that kind of bell curve. Anybody that's taken the math classes or the science classes, you've got the bell curve. On the one end, everybody probably has this kid that's on their team. They're just happy to get the t-shirt. That's the extent of their involvement. They want to be part of something, they're happy to get the t-shirt. But then on the other end, you've got the kid that's really, really talented but lazy. Those are the two ends that we try to stay away from. We want the kids that kind of fit in that middle of the bell curve, that want to work hard, that really care about this, and it's something they're passionate about. So when things aren't going right, they still come back and want to continue to do it. So.
Yeah, for me, I mean, work ethic is huge. If you don't work at it, then it's going to be really tough for you, especially when everybody else in the talent level gets to be very similar. The work ethic is going to be the person that's going to be able to take it another notch. The thing, leadership. What kind of leadership qualities does this particular player have? How are they going to add to our equation? Are they going to add to it, or are they going to take away from it? For me, I hear this a lot. It's, man, this guy, he didn't say a whole lot, but he leads by example. Yeah, that's great, but I'll tell you, that's the bare minimum for me. That's the bare minimum, leading by example, okay, and just being quiet. Because at some point in time, especially for me, dealing with 18 to 22-year-old males, that you're going to have to communicate. You're going to have to talk. You're going to not only have to walk it, you're going to have to talk it as well. And are you going to be able to lift up your teammates when you're out there with us? The work ethic, being a good teammate too. And I'll ask this too. I mean, has he ever been hurt before? Especially in our sport, and I'm sure it's very similar in theirs. It's, has this guy had Tommy John surgery before with his elbow? Has he had problems with his shoulder or his knees or any of that kind of stuff? I'm going to ask that kind of stuff to find out too, just how healthy you are or how you've taken care of your body. Some of that stuff is completely, unavoidable, but there's other things talking about, do you take care of your body? That's going to be a big part of it. You only get one of them, so.
Yeah, I'll say what's huge for me is like humility. When you're dealing with college athletics, like you're dealing with a lot of people who have been the best their whole lives. And when you bring a lot of that together, sometimes there's a lot of arrogance, and that's a really big turnoff to me. I don't want to coach someone who thinks they know more than me. So just that coachable spirit and humility is really, really big for me. But that's hard to see until they're there. So that's where we rely on what your coaches say about you. But work ethic is another one that's huge. There's like two things you can control as a human, and that's your attitude and effort. So what you show us in those two things are huge, because they're literally the only two things you can control.
And just to echo, I guess I would just put in there too, as Coach said, I'm talking a lot with my team about great teams are player-led. Good teams are led by their coaches. So absolutely, we need leaders, and we need somebody who's very confident but not cocky. Mm-hmm. There's a difference. Mm-hmm. There's definitely a difference.
The other thing I forgot to mention too that I thought was huge, and I can't believe it slipped my mind, what kind of competitor are you? That's going to be a massive one for me as well. You know, how well do you compete? You know, when it gets tough, do you back yourself into a corner, or you put your head down, or are you able to lean on them and move forward? Because there's going to be a lot of adversity, and you've got to be a competitor at this level, okay? Or somebody's just going to walk right over top of you.
And just another thing, just kind of like a blanket statement, like assume you're being watched. Like if you are pursuing college athletics, it's probably because someone told you were good enough to play college sports at some point. So assume you're being watched. Like when you're at a tournament, like are you eating a Snickers bar in between games, or are you eating like trail mix? Like are you going to hang out with your teammates, or are you sitting in mom and dad's lap? Like things like that. Those are real scenarios, both of them. But those are real scenarios to think about. Like when I'm in a gym watching girls play, or past tense, those things matter. How do you react to being subbed out? How do you encourage a team? Like, how do you react when you get a kill, volleyball kill, versus when your teammate gets a kill? Like, are you more excited for yourself, or are you more excited for your teammate? So think about those things too. Those are kind of those non-tangibles, not super skill specific, but they really matter to coaches.
For me, I love to show up and watch a recruit fail almost as much as I enjoy watching them succeed, because I want to see what they're going to do and how do they handle failure, you know, versus their success.
So you just mentioned you have to be aware that you'll always be being watched. Current coaches, do you have somebody on staff, or do you use other student athletes to view recruits' Instagrams, Facebooks, Snapchats? Do you take any of the social media into thought, to view, to any of that?
Yes. Yes, absolutely, yes.
I guess for me, that was a little bit harder question to answer. For me, I am going to look at your social media page. I do want to know what you're posting. You know, I know you all hear it. I'm sure our players hear it. I know at the very beginning of the year, you better think before you hit send. I know that's a big thing, but it's true. But I am going to look over it just to make sure that there's not anything on there that's just absurd. You know, whether it's alcohol or drugs or things along those lines. That's going to be something I'll say. I'm not going to enlist my players to necessarily go look for that stuff. I don't think that is their job. I think for me to be able to gather as much information as I can via that or from their coaches is a good start for me.
And with social media, I would also say email addresses. You might want to, some of you, take a look at your email addresses that you use that are personal email addresses, and maybe rethink your email addresses when you email a coach, because I've seen some really wicked, inappropriate email addresses come into my mailbox, and I have just deleted them just because of the email address. So it just calls into question, you thought that was a good idea when you put it together, or you thought it was funny and it stuck. And it can come back to get you. The one example that I use with my kids all the time, because obviously we're college age kids that we're coaching, and some of them are 21 and they can drink legally. So I always use the example, if I'm bending over to pick up a beer can in the middle of the road and somebody takes a picture, I'm picking it up to throw it away. But if somebody takes that picture and sees it and they want to look at it as, oh my God, Coach Cooper is knockout drunk and he can't handle his alcohol. That's the example that I will use with our kids and say, you don't want to put yourself in a position for somebody to make that assumption about you and about what you're doing and about where you're at. So just kind of think before you put yourself in situations. Think before you hit send. Think before you, hey, this email address is going to be wicked funny. I'm going to use this one. And it comes back to bite you. So they might sound little, but in the grand scheme of things, it can come down to when you're looking at a scholarship potentially, or you're looking at an admissions department that's come down between two different files. Those are the types of little things that can come back to get you at some point or another.
Okay, so we have a great student athlete. They are now in your program. Can you talk a little bit about what I'm going to say typical day looks like, both in season and out of season? Having the 3 divisions here kind of represented, it's going to look a little different. You can talk about out of season and what out of season technically means within your program, but just kind of, I've been accepted into your program underneath this sport. What does a typical day both in season and out of season, as well as maybe the travel commitments for your particular sport look like?
It doesn't matter. This is going to take a long time. So for baseball, at the Division I level, when you get to us in August, we're of course out of season until February. That's when we start playing our games. But we have what we call 8-hour weeks, where we're only allowed to work with you for 8 hours for that whole week. So, and 4 of those hours are strength conditioning hours. So really, when you talk about skill instruction, hitting, running, or pitching, infield play, outfield, whatever it is, we're only getting 4 hours of a week to work with you on that. So it really comes out to about 45 minutes a day if I'm trying to stretch out the amount of time that I can have throughout the week. I also have to give you at least 1 day off a week. Okay, so we're working most of the time between 5 and 6 days a week during those 8 hours. And we're kind of getting under the hood, and it's more of a smaller group. We used to call them 4-on-1s. Now we're allowed to have as many as we'd like, but I usually try to keep it somewhere between 4 and 6 players at a time. And maybe it's me working on skill instruction for hitting, and we're using video or any kind of tech that we've got, whether it's TrackMan or blast sensors or any of those kind of things that we're using. And we'll use that for a period of time. Usually it's about the first month. And then we go into what we call 20-hour weeks, where we're able to use 20 hours a week, and it's more of your traditional practice time with your full team, full squad work. We're not allowed to play any other outside competition except for 2 games, and we actually played a couple of junior colleges this fall. And in the past, we've played Lipscomb, because they're right down the road, or Middle Tennessee State or whatnot. But during those 20-hour weeks, it's more of your traditional practices, inter squads, playing against ourselves, and we're still doing that 6 days a week. Once we get past Thanksgiving, we're kind of hands off. We usually cut you guys loose for more time dedicated towards academics, finals, that kind of stuff. And then once the first semester is over with, we don't see you again until January. And then we go back into, once January hits, we go back into those 8-hour weeks for a couple of weeks. Then we have about 3 weeks of practice, and then it's time to play. Usually right around February the 14th or Valentine's Day, whatever that Friday is when we start playing. So I know in high school in Tennessee, that's kind of when practices start. That's when we're actually starting to play games, and we've got a 56-game schedule where we're playing 1 game during the week and then 3 games during the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we'll do that all the way through May, hopefully, and then playing into championship level stuff, which is very similar to, I guess, the NCAA tournament, where you've got 64 teams or 68 teams now, and it's a double elimination tournament throughout.
So we're a little different. We are not tied into the hours, but we get to play a fall schedule, so we can play up to a max of 10 dates. Softball is different than baseball. I wish we would go to the amount of games, but we're allowed to play up to 10 dates in the fall. We can play up to 30 dates in the spring. Keep in mind, we can play as many games as we want on that date, so we always play double headers. But so typically, we're lifting at 6:30 in the morning. Then we go to we go to classes. We practice at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then after practice we go to study hall, and then from there you get to go home, eat, and do your thing. But it can be busy for sure.
Yeah, we're pretty similar. I mean, with me personally, I'm never out of season because we do cross country, indoor and outdoor track. So I'm always in season. Our distance kids will run typically all 3 seasons now. But I think the fall season, it's about 18 weeks long. From the beginning of the season to regionals, I think, is what the NCAA lets Division III have. 6 days a week, we're allowed to practice. We have to take a day off every 7 days. We usually keep practices to about 2 hours a day. We go Monday through Friday. We try to work around class schedules as much as possible. We race cross country pretty much every other week versus high school. A lot of times you guys are racing a couple of days a week, midweek and then a weekend invitational. Track is kind of similar. We'll usually race every weekend. With track, because we do indoor and outdoor, we actually have 24 weeks. So our season's a little bit longer because we do both seasons. But again, it's usually the 2 hours-ish a day is about what we tend to stick to 5 days a week. From an out-of-season type workouts for the track kids that aren't doing fall sports, we are allowed to do strength and conditioning stuff with our strength and conditioning coach. It's voluntary. I can't make it mandatory, but that's something that a lot of our students do because it's something they're passionate about, so they want to do everything they can to get better. So that's kind of, I guess, in a nutshell, where we are from a Division III standpoint with our season.
Perfect. Within your program and maybe within your school even, can you talk a little bit about your personal academic requirements or what you ask of your students on the academic side, as well as maybe the extra help, study halls, advantages they may get as a student athlete within your school?
I'll lead it off again. So at Belmont it's an academically rigorous school. It's not the toughest, I guess, or the hardest that I've ever seen, but it's not the easiest either. Our team GPA, and I'm not trying to go into a recruiting thing, but it's important to us. I mean, our team GPA this past year was the highest that it's ever been. It was a 3.27 as a team. Okay, so our 37 baseball players were able to pull that out. But that being said, all of our freshmen, what we do is we have a ton of safety nets underneath our players. They're going to meet with an academic advisor once a week. And that could be a 15-20 minute meeting. And for an example, it might look like our advisor pulls out a syllabus that says, okay, John, I see that you've got this English comp class, okay, and I see in 6 weeks after looking at the syllabus you've got a term paper due. So next week when I see you, I just want to make sure that you've got an outline for this term paper. So she's not doing the work for you, but she's just trying to keep you on track so you don't procrastinate, which is one of the biggest academic killers for student athletes, especially in Nashville with all the things going on. It's just making sure that they're staying on track. So we're going to have those weekly meetings with an academic advisor that is in our department. They're going to have 6 hours of mandatory study hall that they can do on any part of campus. All they have to do is scan their card, be able to get into the library, the math lab, the writing lab, or whatnot, and being able to get all this stuff taken care of. And I think that's been a big reason why our grades have been so good, just because there's somebody that's always kind of watching, just making sure that you're staying on track. And if you needed any help, that's where that one-on-one weekly meeting, other than looking at the reflection of your grades, maybe you walk in and you're like, you know what, my grades are pretty good right now in this algebra class, and I'm really starting to struggle in it. Is there any way that I might be able to get a tutor? And that's something that we're able to do as well. And I know our head coach says this all the time, and it's true. I mean, we get the best tutors on campus because we pay the most. So they want to work with our players. But it is true. We give them so many opportunities and so many, anything to be able to grab, to be able to use, a lot of resources within the academic world. And I think, like I said, our grades have reflected that.
Well, and I think I'll go ahead and jump in. We're pretty similar in terms of the academic side of things. That's first and foremost, again, why you're at Sewanee, is because of the academics. You can get involved in anything else that you want while you're there, but the nature of the Division III student athlete is you're a student first, and an athlete is kind of 1A is what we're looking for. We will typically meet with all of our kids as a staff with one-on-one meetings with every one of the kids in our program pretty much every 2 or 3 weeks, one-on-one. And that's a lot to check in. How's the transition for freshmen coming into college? Because there's a lot of new things that they're trying to deal with. How are your classes? Let's sit and kind of go through your syllabus. Let's see what it is that you're struggling with. Have you talked to your professor? We kind of walk through a lot of the steps that you should be doing as an adult. Okay, I'm struggling in this chemistry class. Well, have you talked to your professor? Well, no. Okay, that's step number 1. You need to set up a meeting with your professor. Okay, well, have you set up a tutor? No. Okay, that's step number 1A. Let's make sure that we can get you connected with a tutor so they can help you through what you're doing. Have you talked to anybody else that's on the team or has taken that class to help kind of walk you through that? No? Okay, there's 1C, I guess, at that point. Really trying to make sure that you're able to do the work. The big secret about that first semester of college is it's not rocket science. If you're able to manage your time and stay ahead of your work when you think you have nothing to do, you're probably going to be successful. The biggest difference is just the volume and you having all the free time because your life isn't scheduled for you like it is in high school. You might have 1 class on Monday, 3 classes on Tuesday, nothing on Wednesday. And it's how do you make the most of your downtime so that you can get ahead, you can be proactive, you can do everything that you need to do so that you're not coming to me at practice at 5 o'clock and saying, hey coach, I've got a paper that's due tomorrow. Can I miss practice so that I can get that paper done? Well, how long have you known about this paper? Well, we found out about it at the beginning of the semester. We're 10 weeks in and you're asking me now to skip practice to get this paper done. A, you're going to be able to do it, but B, there may be a consequence where you don't get a chance to compete at the next meet because you weren't in practice. So you're there for your academics, but we want to make sure that you're able to also fulfill that commitment that you made to the team, which is equally as important.
Mercer, I'll speak for Mercer where I currently am, not where I coach. It's pretty similar to Belmont. They're both Division I institutions, but you have that as a first year student, you have that 6 hours of study hall, and then you can GPA out of that. So if you get above a 3.0 after that first year, you don't have to go to study hall ever again. Because you've kind of proven that you've got this whole college thing under control. But if you don't get above a 3.0, you might have continuous study hall hours into your sophomore year and all of that. I will say another great thing about Mercer is you kind of have this dual coverage. You have your faculty advisor that's in your major, and then as a student athlete, you also have athletic student services, which is basically academic and advising services specific to athletes. So they help you with things like making sure you get your study hall hours taken care of, or if you need a tutor, getting a tutor. They also help you with scheduling to make sure that your schedule fits into practice times. That's the biggest struggle of college athletics, is finding a time where everyone can practice. But again, like, you're no good to your coach if you're not eligible. So if you're not doing what you need to in the classroom, you're of no benefit to your coach. So making sure that you stay eligible and you have the right GPA is really, really important. And again, student before athlete. That always has to come first, because at the end of the day, you need to finish. You need to get that degree because it's not really worth it if you don't complete that goal. But again, there's a lot of safeguards as a student athlete because your coaches want you to stay eligible. So there's a little more support in that and more things you can do as far as tutoring and more people invested in making sure you do succeed.
We do not have as many safety nets as you can imagine because we just do not have as big of a staff. But for us, what you have to understand at our level is you are still a recruitable player. So you aren't at Belmont for the next 4 years. You are not at Sewanee for the next 4 years. You are at Montlow for 2 years, and then you are wanting to be recruited again to go to the next level. So academics is very, very important. Our team GPA that we always set is definitely always a 3.2. It matters to me, that is for sure, because again, your job is not only to be a good student, but also when you come to JUCO, we want you to be recruited again. It aids us to recruit that next level athlete when we can prove that we put out student athletes that are going on to the 4-year. So for us, it's typically the coaches that are in study hall with you, but we do have a completion coach that's in charge of all of the student athletes, and so we do have a safety net. But just, it is on you. Time management is crucial. I would say for us, what we see at Montlow is the most difficult thing for you guys coming in as freshmen in the fall is figuring out all the modalities that all the teachers use. We have a D2L shell. All your classes are in D2L, a blackboard, something like that. But a lot of times your math may be in a Pearson or in a McGraw-Hill, or so that to me is probably the most difficult thing your freshman year, is just figuring out where all do you go to submit your work, to take your quizzes, all this, that, and another.
Okay, to be respectful of everyone's time, I will have one more question, and this is kind of, so we have student athletes here that live in Bell Buckle, Tennessee. Some of us just found Bell Buckle, Tennessee today. So as a coach, what can these student athletes that are sitting here and they are putting their heart and soul into their sport here in Bell Buckle, Tennessee, what is kind of your piece of advice for them to continue to follow that dream, to get recruited, to play at the next level from somebody who is coming from a school like this and programs like this? So a coach, what is your advice to this group of students?
Well, the first thing I would say, especially for baseball, you would hear this a lot. Years ago, it was, well, smaller schools, they didn't face the type of competition that helps an evaluator, or it's a town that's so far away, I'm going to travel to a bigger city, I can see more students. For us in baseball, the summer side of things where guys are playing against each other all the time, don't get caught up in, well, we're just Bell Buckle, or it's so far away. I mean, you can make your mark. If you're good enough, people will find you. I think that for the longest time has been kind of an excuse for some, where it was, well, I just wasn't recruited because my school was small. It hasn't anything to do with it. If you can play, you can play, and people will find you. I just see that countless stories where that does happen. I mean, I know some of our players that went to schools that are just the same size, and maybe even smaller, and they played maybe a summer team that I was able to see, or even the high school team. My kids go to smaller schools as well. I think you guys are getting a valuable, not only education, but an experience here that's second to none. And a lot of times, and I was talking earlier about this, that you don't realize it, but this is a valuable place for you all to be able to get a great education, but being able to parlay that into an athletic career, just continue to keep working at it. I know that you hear that a lot, but we were talking about it earlier about classes and weight rooms and all that kind of stuff. There is a high correlation between student athletes that get it done in the classroom, that get it done in the weight room, and you'll see all the time they get it done on the field. And you've got to be able to have all three of those.
Yeah, I don't just recruit from big schools or private schools or public schools or major cities. My roster, so 2 years ago, we had 30 kids that came in from 15 different states for track and cross country. I've got kids from California to Texas to New York to New Jersey to Oklahoma to Kansas that are all on our team here on the mountain on the domain in Sewanee, Tennessee. Some of those kids have reached out to us and found us. Some of those are kids that we've reached out to and we found them. What I would say is, don't let somebody tell you you can't do it. If it's something that you are completely honest with yourself, you look at yourself in the mirror in the room at night by yourself, and you're like, I absolutely, positively cannot see myself not continuing this, you find a place that you can continue it. It may not be your dream school that you think has been your dream school, but it is your dream to continue doing this regardless of the school. And I think at the end of the day, being able to continue doing what you do and what you love and what you're passionate about doing is what's going to make your experience that much more beneficial, that much more memorable, the relationships that you form that much more impactful, and it's going to give you an opportunity to really grow as a person, grow into an adult, to grow into the leader, to grow into whatever it is, because you're doing something that you love. Not something that somebody told you could do, or something that somebody, no offense for Division I, gave you money to say, you're really good, you can continue doing this, whether you want to or not. And I think for me, that's the biggest thing that I've always stayed at Division III, is because every single kid that's on my team is doing it because they enjoy it. They can walk away at any time and their financial aid package doesn't change. They can quit doing it because they're involved in a lot of other groups that they feel more passionate about, and that's okay. It hurts the team sometimes when we lose kids, but that's why you come to a school like Sewanee, is to follow your passions and to be involved and really figure out what direction you want to go next. Because 99.9% of kids that do athletics in college don't make it a career. You get a degree, and then you get to go be a professional doctor, lawyer, public speaker, teacher, whatever it is.
Coach.
Coach.
A lot of times.
and I am not a doctor, and I see my paycheck, but I love what I do.
Yeah, I would say that put yourself out there and don't cut off any options or don't shut any doors. Just stay open-minded and put yourself out there. Yes, if you're really good, people will find you, but you have to put yourself out there. You have to raise your hand for them to find you a lot of times. And just be open-minded to the process. I didn't end up where I thought I was gonna go, but I had the best 4 years of my life and everything worked out. So don't think you're too good for anything either. I know that's bad to say, but there's this whole mentality of like D1 or bust. Like there's so many great options that aren't D1, like so many good options that aren't Division I. And it's okay, like you're a college athlete regardless of what level you play. So bet on you, and whatever that looks like, it's gonna be fine.
Here's my question. We got one senior in the room, is that correct? Where's my juniors? Where's my sophomores? Freshmen? Awesome. Okay, I got a question. How many of you can honestly, and you better raise your hand, nice and tall, how many of you have your top 5 schools? Okay, so out of everybody in here, we have 4 that have their top 5 schools. Okay, I think all of us could speak to how we got recruited. Scott Hall can definitely vouch for me on this. I have 3 extremely talented sons. I'm very fortunate on that. I have 3 extremely talented sons, but you know how much I have in them dedicated to understanding what is their top 5 schools and where they want to go and where they want to play and all that type. Okay, you have to bet on you. You have to put the work in. You can be as talented as anybody, but if you're not advocating for yourself and if you can't answer where do I want to go, then you're lost. Your talent's being wasted. Okay, so that would be what I would say big time is you've got to ask yourself, what's my top 5? And then you've got to go talk to, send emails, communicate. What are they looking for? I can't go to Belmont if in that recruiting class they have, and I'm a pitcher and they've already recruited all the pitchers that they're going to recruit. I got to move on. Go to number 2. Okay, so.
And it's okay if your top 5 changes. Very few people end up where they thought they were going to go when they were 12, 15, 18 sometimes. So it's okay if the top 5 changes.
But you got to start somewhere.
Awesome. Coaches, anything to add?
The last thing I think I would throw out there is as a Division III guy, I'm career Division III, I'm biased Division III.
We can't tell.
I grew up 10 minutes from Ohio State. I was smart enough to know that if I went to Ohio State, I would have failed out because it was just too big for me. So I found a smaller Division III school that was able to give me the attention that I wanted. And like somebody had already touched on, a lot of the mentality anymore is D1 or bust. I was an All-American in college. Nobody's going to take that away from me, and nobody's going to tell me it was any less important than a Division II All-American, a Division I All-American. I would have placed in the Big Ten my senior year. I was an All-American my senior year. I still have the plaque that's sitting on my mantle to say that I was able to do this while I maintained great grades, while I was able to do everything that I wanted to do. There's Olympians that are Division III athletes. There's also neuroscience that's Division III athletes. There's also politicians that are Division III athletes. There's also, you name it. Coaches, Rhodes Scholars. I mean, it's, as a Division III athlete, as a Division III coach, it's perfect for everybody. I think everybody can succeed at a Division III school.
Find your fit.
Yep.
Find your fit.
Find your fit and pursue it.
And I would say too, the criteria that you're looking for, and everybody's a little bit different. You know, are you okay with being close to home? Do you want to move further away? Does the school that you're interested because you saw them on TV, does it carry the major that you want? There's a lot of things that go into it when you're trying to base your decision on trying to find your top 5 schools. And from an athletic standpoint too, this is a big one, is make sure that you're picking the school because you like the school, not the coaching staff a lot of times. The coaching staff is going to help that, no doubt. But if you're picking it because of the coaches, a lot of times the coach might not be there. You know, especially the way that college athletics are going now. I mean, you never know. as far as that kind of stuff goes. People are moving around constantly, and if you're picking the school just based on who the coach is, it's probably not the best way about going about it.
If you guys were here earlier when I talked in chapel, I'll say it again because I think it's really important. When you're on a visit at a school, do the broken leg test. Okay, what does that mean? If your leg is broken and your season is over, are you going to be happy where you are? Because if you're not, it's not a good fit. If the only reason you're picking a school is because you get to be on the team, it's not a good enough reason. Sports can end, not just seasons, your sports career can end. So really focus on a place where you can be happy holistically. That means academically, athletically, and personally. So as morbid as it sounds, do the broken leg test.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to thank all four of you so much for your time, and this was a great resource. Hopefully we'll do another one of these in the future and get a little, maybe some questions from you guys if you guys have individual questions. But I just, first off, if you guys will help me thanking these coaches for coming tonight.